No, I don't think so. You see what time?
I just thought if I could, yeah, no, that's good.
Yes, we could have done it.
I'll remember it next time, because it'd be good for them to, I don't know how much we can go out there.
No, you got it.
Mr. Ron, how you doing, buddy? Seeing you too.
I just took them this afternoon.
That's good news. Well, you got another flash drive for me?
No, I'm looking to see.
You know what? Good to see you.
Somehow. For the record.
Yes, he did a PowerPoint.
He did.
And then there's a video, a kill video.
Yep.
And then there's a set picture.
Call our study session to order. And Summer, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Patterson?
Here.
Commissioner Norwood?
Here.
Commissioner Siragusa? Here. Commissioner Roberts?
Here.
Commissioner Stallings? Here. Commissioner Orr?
Here.
And Mayor Mason?
Here.
Present.
Item number 2, at the Commissioner's request, discuss any item of concern on the regular session agenda. Does anyone have a comment, concern?
I think I got my everything answered.
Besides me having too much stuff in my pocket. Let's see. All right. No one has anything. I'll move on. Section number 3, 3.1, quarterly VDA update from Mike Cooper.
That's what we looked at
Cooper?
in the regular meeting.
Mayor, City Council, good to see you again. Some of you I saw this morning at Advanced Development Authority, but I'll try to be quick here, but I thought as I did this morning, thought it'd be real quick. It's the 30-year anniversary of the Advanced Development Authority. So I thought you might want to know we're one of the top organizations like this, and as you all remember, we created this in '94, prior to when we all kind of knew what BRAC was and what impact it has. But I just wanted to quickly tell you, we've been doing the protect and enhancement effort, which is mainly centered around infrastructure quality of life for 30 years. And we have been pretty successful, so I'll just go down through about 7 or 8 things, just so you know, about $300 million worth of MilCon infrastructure, and there's been many more dollars out there spent, which bring us from being the worst of the remaining bases to a level of parity on infrastructure. We've given proffered to the Air Force over 300 acres so they could expand their mission if they needed to. Prior to that, we had 0 acres to expand. So if you ever came to another BRAC and they looked at you, again, that's a bad thing. We had dollars that we brought to you for the water project, which water is important to everybody. That's a resiliency thing, about $8 million. We had $20 million that we've done for improvements to Vance Air Force Base. I'm not a flyer, but if you are a flyer, runways are a good thing, so that helps them do the mission that they do and be very effective at that. The south road, I can't remember the road to the south, on the south side of Vance Air Force Base. Wheat Capital. So that's a heavily reinforced that the state of Oklahoma, we were able to go to them and get them to help us do that. That was from the improvements or the expansion of the Garden Reserve that was placed on that from BRAC 2005 that we worked to do that. One of only 3 states that got dollars to do that type of thing. State of Oklahoma got 7 super centers, those Armed Force Reserve centers. So we did that. We also worked during that time, from that expansion, we had to do a new wastewater treatment facility, not just for Vance, but because of that expansion and ours. Went to the legislature and worked through the governor and the speaker pro tem to create legislation that created a bond pool of money up to $100 million of infrastructure for the communities that had expansion from BRAC. It was us and Tinker. What that meant was when you built that wastewater treatment, and again, Gerald, I think it's $5 or $6 million of interest that it paid for you for 5 years to help you do that. Again, that's something else we did. And again, with that, the Call Lake project, about $8 million that were brought to that. One significant thing on the $300 million MilCon, approximately that, it's in a time when those were all what they call earmarks or congressional ads, not a regular program budgeted item. In other words, if we collectively weren't pounding our legislatures at the federal level to bring those type of dollars here, they would not have happened. And I know Rob knows that's a very significant thing. In other words, these aren't regular program budgeted items that the Air Force was able to ask for Vance Air Force Base, because Vance is one of the smallest of the small bases in ATC. So when you have projects that are 15, 20 million, it's very hard to bring those dollars to Vance Air Force Base. So again, we've done a great job. And we have the Vance Development Authority, and you had new people come on this morning, you have a new city councilman, and it takes all of us working together, and we have a lot of specialty people on that board, whether it's from education, hospitals, medical field, those are important quality of life things. We have people that know the housing industry in our community, because we always have to make sure they have enough affordable, available, quality housing. So there's a lot going on there, but I thought just to highlight things of 30 years, but what we've been working on currently, and we ended it last year to get it authorized, was $8.4 million for our next project, MilCon project, which is upwards of 84, 89 million, and it's probably more now because that was a couple of years ago. So we were able to get authorized $8.4 million for engineering design, which helps them move them to be able to make decisions to put it in the 5-year plan or put it eventually in the president's budget, or we can then work, if it's in the 5-year plan, our congressional delegation can work to try to get that in the out years, and that is a very important item for us. So if you look at all that we have going on, the dollars that we've brought here has been very hard to get in our congressional delegation, starting back with when Senator Nichols and Boren were our senators, and Lucas and others that were there to always work with us. We've done a really good job. We have some of the stiffest legislation to protect our airspace. I've worked with North Carolina, Arizona, and New Mexico for them to create legislation modeled after ours, and that's how we protect our military training routes, approaches to runways, and our weather radars that were placed there specifically for their use. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of activity. As I said, the $8.4 million was authorized at the end of last year. We fought real hard. Lucas and Mullen did a great job. Mullen carried that because he was able to get it on the Senate side in the Armed Services Committee and got it in the NDA. When it goes to conference, we got it. And so then, though, we had to wait till the budget that was finalized a couple of weeks ago, and it stayed in the budget, and we did get the appropriation, so we did get that. So that's a great thing for us to move forward. So I thought it was just good to highlight some of the things we're doing because we've been doing a lot, and there's a lot of good people that assist with doing that. But know that Advanced Development Authority, again, 30 years, and I think I told y'all before, someone will ask me, Rob or somebody says, hey, Coop, how long you been doing this? I had dark hair when I started doing this. So anyway, if anybody got any questions, I'll certainly answer them, but that kind of highlights that. I know the DC trip is coming up in a couple of weeks, so.
Mike, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Those numbers you were throwing out, it's obvious that you're putting in an enormous amount of effort, and we're getting some significant return on all that stuff that we're doing for the base. It's obvious that we all care about the base very much. I was at your meeting this morning, and you had mentioned several times, maybe at one point upwards of 500 million impact over the course of the Advanced Development Authority. And not only Vance, but Woodring. I mean, you guys are getting money for Woodring, and obviously Vance, it's obvious why that's important to the city of Enid. And not only that, but the Woodring Airport is important as well as the biggest airport in northwest Oklahoma. So my question for you is, and you mentioned several times this morning, protecting Vance and making recommendations to the city council to get things done to help the base. So I'd like to get your perspective on it with really no positive impact and really neutral impact at the best, in the best scenario. What's your opinion on VDA not supporting a recommendation regarding the solar project that's going between the two airports? That's thousands of acres of glass. And I, as a pilot, a professional pilot at that matter, I'm not just an amateur, I'm not real enthused about flying over that stuff. I mean, I don't like looking into the sun, and that's basically what it's going to be, and all that glass and the ejection possibilities with our student pilots out there, because it does go right underneath our outside pattern for T6s on the east side of the field. What's your opinion on that? I thought maybe I might expect at the best a letter from the VDA saying, I'm not expecting the VDA to stop this solar project, but at least I figured the VDA could produce a letter saying, hey, I don't think this is the greatest idea.
Yeah. First of all, Commissioner, I appreciate the question. Our job on Advanced Development Authority, and we kind of explained this a while back, but the process that we have for, because there's been a lot, for example, there's a process that we have at the state level. There's state legislation dealing with wind turbines and towers and structures as it impacts military training routes, approaches runway, weather radar, all of that. So we have a process in place, and so while we are concerned, and so what the Advanced Development Authority has, and we are concerned about the airspace, that's our #1 military value, as you know, and so we're going to do everything we can to protect it. So if you have a wind farm that's requested out here, and before there was no legislation, because we were interested, we went out and did that. Now, what we do is we stand out of the way, because there is a process of who makes those decisions. And it isn't the Advanced Development Authority, because all the people sitting on Advanced Development Authority may all have an opinion, but our opinions don't get into it. What we want from the Department of Defense and the Air Force is the answer that, does it have mission impact, yes or no? It isn't, we never bring any of these developments, and there are hundreds of them annually that we get asked to look at, but never in the Advanced Development Authority, because there is a process where, once we know who the developers are, first job was, when I was chairman of the Military Planning Commission, which is like the Advanced Development Authority, only at the state level, what you did is you made sure, after notice from the Aeronautics Commission that there was a wind farm being developed somewhere out here, that the only thing we did was give an initial response. And the initial response, well, what do we think about that? And of course, we got the answer from talking to the wing here or at Fort Sill or at Altus and get a general idea, or Tinker. And then we'd write a statement about that. And again, this is at the state level, but then where the discussion or the answer came wasn't from the Vance Development Authority, it was the Department of Defense and the Air Force make the decision, and until they give a no adverse impact letter stating that there is nothing, no impact at all, well then, and only then, can a development move forward. So, and again, when this first started, I'm the one that worked and fought against the ones we had to actually file an injunction to get them stopped. They had a lot of wind turbines that were, say, developed, and it could have been anything, whether it was solar or not, but if it was wind turbines, and so you stop that development. The Attorney General, we worked to do that and brought everybody to the table, and then that's where the legislation was created. But it's very, very stiff legislation. But again, what it does, it takes the decision-making out of our hands and leave it to the experts. In other words, I'm not a flyer. I understand you are, but I'm not. But we want the people that make the decisions on airspace to tell us. And if it's no, then it doesn't, the state of Oklahoma doesn't allow it, and neither would we. But on this particular solar farm, which we've vetted that over and over again, and I've talked to, various retired, and I talked to the wing commander today. I've talked to various retired 3- and 4-star generals that say it absolutely has zero impact. So, but with all of that said, we have a process in place, and we went out of our way to get the right answer when we were asked. The only involvement I had was when the mayor and they'd had a previous MAPC meeting when they didn't know what the answer was, and we met with the MAPC leadership and said, well, we can work. We know, we have a good relationship inside the Air Force and DOD to get the answer. We'll get you the answer because it's important to us too. So, but I guess with all that said, it's never been the Vance Development Authority or any of the other authorities in any of these other communities to weigh in on that decision, because the decision is always left either to the Army leadership, Air Force leadership, and Department of Defense.
Yeah,
So-
well, yeah, and I understand that process. What I'm saying is, I wouldn't put too much weight in what the Air Force always says. I spent 21 years and they always give you an answer, but it's not always the right answer.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't put too much weight into that. I can give you a handful of examples where they have had mistakes. But my point is, as a pilot, one of the largest if not the largest solar project going right between our two airports is just not a good idea. And I just expected a little bit more from the VDA on a little bit of resistance. I don't expect you guys to stop the project, but maybe something to say hey, this may not be the greatest location. I'm not excited about flying less than 1,000 feet over 5,000 acres of glass.
Right.
That's just.
I will tell you, Commissioner, and I again appreciate what you say. I will just say that at least in my lifetime and the years that I've been doing this, at the end of the day, I have to trust somebody. And the people that I trust with are my partners that have been working with me to do things, again, over 30 years. And I will tell you that Oklahoma didn't have protection, but the people inside the Pentagon and the Air Force are the ones that worked with me directly and the governor and the two legislative leaders to get Oklahoma the legislation we had. So, and we essentially said, and so the only thing I will tell you, and I guess if you don't trust people, I can't help that, but the state of Oklahoma, I'm telling you, has some of the toughest laws in the nation, and we absolutely will not and do not allow anything that has negative impact to any of the missions in the state. Because before we had that legislation, we lost a couple of military training routes in the South. We didn't use them, but Shepherd did. And you never get them back. So the reason I trust the people, because I work hand in hand with them to get the legislation perfect to what, and again, it's what they wanted. And we did too, the state of Oklahoma, because again, we know, the military is the largest second largest employer in the state, generally with the highest per capita income in any of the communities outside Oklahoma City that we have. So we're going to do everything we do. And all I'll tell you is I do trust the people that I'm working with. And again, when I go back, and again, we all have relationships, and mine go back 30 years, and it's like when you go back and talk to even people that are retired out to 3- and 4-star levels that you were either in ATC or Air Combat Command or flying to big planes, whatever, then, okay, who else am I to listen to? And I don't have I can have an opinion one way or the other about whether I like wind turbines or solar or whatever, and that's what we've tried to take that out. I don't want, VDA doesn't have any business about, because we all have an opinion, and that's great, but at least for the specific reason, does it have impact to that mission out there? The answer is no.
I understand all that.
Commissioner, can I jump in there real quick?
I just wish you guys would have thought a little bit
Colonel
more.
Ashcroft, would you like to speak? Go ahead.
Until he's done.
Okay.
I was, as a pilot out there,
Yeah.
they don't, when they make these decisions, they don't always look at it from the perspective of the men and women who are out there flying these airplanes over that glass field. And that's all I'm saying. I just, even
Right.
just because the Air Force says it's okay, doesn't mean it's a good idea. That's all I'm saying.
One of the things, again, because we've all been at risk for closure, and so you can understand how, whether it's our community or the state. And so when they do something like this, they're not going to, they do it, yeah, we don't want to lose mission or whatever, but we also know that at the end of the day, God forbid I ever get to another BRAC, that if I haven't done things like this to protect ourselves, then that's when, if you're not going to protect airspace, then you're not going to protect airspace. Now, if they give me the decision that there's no impact to mission, then they can't come back later and grade me or score me based on, well, that causes you, and so just.
I'm just saying it's going to be a shame in the very improbable
Yeah.
probability that somebody gets killed out there on a piece of glass. And I'm just saying that's going
Let me hop in there
that's
real
going to be
quick.
unfortunate.
Yeah.
So first, I appreciate your question and your position, okay? Let me make sure everybody can hear me on this, okay? I take exception to the fact that you just said you don't trust the United States Air Force, especially since you work on base. Okay, I'll make sure I bring that up, all right? I take exception to the fact I'm sitting right here and you just told me that you don't think that I care about my pilot's safety. That's what you just told me. Nope, don't interrupt me. All right? It also, man, I'm shaking. I'm so pissed right now. I care deeply about my airmen.
No, you do.
Okay? It's clear you have not done your homework and you're just talking. I have done my homework. I have done personally glare and glare studies on the materials they're using on that field. I have personally looked to scale on Google Earth where every single one of those panels is going to go in conjunction with wood ring. And you, as a pilot, understand departure procedures, okay? And that solar farm is not under the VFR pattern of our pilots. It momentarily, at times, could be in the transition point in which it is near impossible to eject over. You would have to try to hit it. So it's clear you have not done your homework. I ask you to do your homework before you speak in public and get the public who cares deeply about the pilot's advance and the base before you get them all riled up and you haven't done your homework. You're talking out loud. I have done my homework. There is not an ejection risk to our pilots. You'd have to shoot and try to hit it. Pilots, I know a lot of pilots too. I happen to be a professional pilot. I may have as many hours as you have. You're an airline, so you probably spend a lot more time straight and level than you do in a pattern. Okay? I know pilots who don't know a lot what they're talking about, and just because you're a professional pilot, you may need to do your homework.
Before we go any further, and I just want to make sure, Colonel Ashcroft, who speaks for Vance Air Force Base?
Colonel Throckmorton is the only person that speaks for Vance Air Force Base.
No civilian speaks for Vance?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Anyway,
Cooper?
Any more questions? But we'll continue. We do know that airspace is our #1 military value, so we continue to do that, and we will. And again, appreciate all the questions or comments, because we're always going to do that, but we are always going to be challenging to get the right answer. And so is the state of Oklahoma. So that's what we do.
Mike, thank you so
Okay.
much. Thank you for all the work you do. I just, the amount of dollars you brought to this community and to help support our base goes above and beyond.
Okay.
So thank you so much, and we'll look forward to more updates in the future.
Appreciate it. Appreciate
All right.
you letting me do it. Thank you.
you. Item 3.2, Call Lake Water Supply Program Update from Garney. Jason, I think this is you.
All right, good evening, Mayor, Commission. I stood here previously, December 19th of last year, just before the Christmas and New Year holidays, and provided a program update. For those of you that were in attendance, you know, where are we at today? We're currently in phase 4 of the program, so I've got some really good updates. And then to offer some more clarity, back in December of last year on projected program completion, I said to be determined. After we got through the first year, we had a number of things to further assess and gain more clarity on, and I'll cover that in more detail today. The magnitude of the program, obviously a very large program build with multiple facilities spanning 70-some miles from Call Lake here to Enid, and then the distribution within Chestnut. From a total magnitude, just over 2,400 submittals to date. Currently, we only have 7 open. We've got 832 RFIs and growing, with 6 currently open and 101 field orders to date throughout all 5 of those major facilities. With regards to the major infrastructure, we have the intake facility. We currently have it flagged at 93% complete out at Call Lake. The pipelines currently flagged at 99% complete. We get into the pipelines, I'll touch on the open items there. Intermediate booster pump station, 99%. The water treatment plant, 75%. And the Chestnut water main, I have it at 65%, but as far as open cut piping, we're actually more approximate to 71 or 72%. The program alignment, again, working from Call Lake, the 70 miles along the way for the raw water pipeline, again, 8 pipeline segments. Along the way, the intermediate booster pump station, and then here at Enid, the new greenfield water treatment plant, as well as the ongoing Chestnut distribution main. This is an older photo at the intake site, and it was placement of the raw water, or the intake pump station slab. Today, if you make a visit, you'll no longer be able to see the slab. We used to do all the site tours and things of that nature. This is actually the roof panel above that pump station slab. This is the current progress of the intake electrical building and the HVAC system. There within the electrical room, some of the equipment installation in preparation for final commissioning and some equipment startups there at the intake site. Again, active site restoration, some of the shoreline protection and riprap. And just an older slide that had presented before, to caption some of the riprap, shoreline protection, and the floating log boom assembly out within the Call Lake structure. With regards to the pipelines, and again, I believe in December my update was we had successfully pressure tested 4 of the 8 pipeline segments. As of today, we've successfully pressure tested 5 of the 8, and we're working to secure segment 6, 7, and 8 in order to begin filling and testing of those, hopefully within the next few months. As far as those percentages, the dark blue line working from Enid out towards Call Lake would start at the water plant. That depicts the portions of the pipeline that's currently been pressure tested to date. The pink colored line is the segment 6, 7, and 8. Currently ongoing efforts within those segments. We have a Bodart Creek crossing, a few hundred foot of that outside of that deepened tunnel crossing. Up within segment 7, and you'll see in the progress, we just recently completed connections to the Arc West HDD. At the last update, that HDD was not on the table. East was. Unfortunately, at that time, we were 2,200 of the 2,400 foot complete. Today, we're 0. They've since extracted that portion of the pipe string, and again, I'll talk more about that through the updates. A prior aerial depicting the USACE property out near the intake site. A lot of collaboration and work efforts in order to secure those license agreements and helpful working environments, and they've just been a great entity to work alongside throughout the course of this program. Standing at Lake Road, this is within segment 8, an aerial photo depicting some of the final surface restoration. Again, this photo is a few months old. If I had a current one today, it would be a different color, of course, with the spring conditions paramount. I touched on the Arkansas East location. This is at Highway 60. The crews will be transitioning back to this area, the open cut contractor, within the next week, either close of this week, early next week. We left a short segment of pipe to allow working space for the HDD contractor. They'll thread that tunnel, secure that portion of the pipeline in preparation for that pipe string to be filled and pressure tested. Earlier, I'd mentioned Bodart Creek within segment 6. We've got excessively deep tunnel crossing this area. We're currently in the process of implementing and placing some of the vertical sheeting and shoring in order to accommodate that tunnel crossing. Hopefully over the next couple of months, that portion of the work is complete. All the adjoining open cut connections are facilitated, and we're ready to begin filling and testing of that pipeline segment as well. This is, and I've got a series of a couple photos. This is the Arkansas West, just south of Ponca City. We facilitated the connection on the west side, moving from left to right. The photo on the left is actually the 30-inch connection to that horizontal directional drill underneath the Arkansas River. And that outlet is an air release structure. The center photo is actually the transition between the 36-inch diameter transmission main and the 30-inch diameter transmission main. Again, from that point all the way out to the intake is 36-inch. From that point all the way here to Enid at the water treatment plant is 30-inch. Photo on the right is just a representative of that final interconnect and the internal temporary test plug when we do initiate filling and pressure testing. This is that same area, final restoration, placement of topsoil. Again, we went through a series of coordination events alongside Ponca environmental representatives in order to facilitate this scope of work. This is a depiction of the final product. On the opposing side of the river, this is also the Arkansas West connection, but on the 36-inch side. This work now is successfully complete. Crews have restored it, and that crew is finishing a transition in order to get over to the Highway 60 area that I just alluded to earlier. Some of the final restoration efforts, one of the blow-off valve structures along the pipeline alignment. And I think from last update, there's some 200 plus or minus air releases and blow-offs along the course of this 70-mile span. Depiction of some of the final surface restoration. Some of the other ongoing activities over the next 1 to 2 months along the raw water pipeline corridor. This is a final completion of the cathodic protection system. And currently those crews throughout the course of this month should make final connections and transfer permanent power supply. Outside of that, we'll work alongside the owner and engineering teams for final commissioning of that CP cathodic system. The intermediate booster pump station. This is a security gate entrance to that 1 million gallon structure or tank. Same photo, but on the opposing side. If you see down towards the bottom of that, that's actually the overflow structure. And then to the right side of that photo is the header pipe assembly in order to transfer that water supply and boost the pressure to take it onto the water treatment plant. Adjoining photo of the electrical building. A closer picture of the electrical building and the HVAC supply to accommodate the equipment within that building. Again, at the intermediate booster pump station site, vertical turbine pumps. And at the intermediate site, for all intents and purposes, work will conclude over the next 1 to 2 months at that site as well, just into final commissioning and startup when that time comes. Water treatment plant. This is an older aerial. We'll continue to reference at all the major facilities. And again, if you have the opportunity to visit any of these sites, please take it upon yourself and do so. There's a lot of active and ongoing construction. Things have changed considerably day by day on particularly the plant site with things going vertical. Okay, this photo, zoomed in aerial to the lower portion of the screen. You got the TSR and the sludge lagoons, the existing plant structures, and up here towards the front of the screen, this will be the filter admin building, and I'll touch more upon that structure. But for the most part, all activity within this site will be coming to a close in the summer of this year, but there will be continued focus within this portion of the build at the filter admin building, and I'll touch on that in more detail. This is one of the TSR inlet structures, terminal storage reservoirs. This is a TSR outlet structure, and I've got a couple of photos of that. Final concrete and civil placements. This is a raw water pump station slab, and I did not get a final update, but this slab was scheduled for placement today. Not sure whether that happened, but it's very imminent if it did not occur today. Some of the final pictures of the flock sedimentation basin. This is facing west, capturing some of the stairs and miscellaneous metals. Same structure, but facing from the north. And then again, from the southeast corner, capturing some of the electrical conduits as well. Up on top, some of the baffle wall assemblies within that facility. Within the ozone facility, these are the injection wells. There was a multitude of examples where we had CMAR collaboration throughout the design. This is one of the value engineering components of the project to go from concrete to stainless steel contactors, and there's a host of examples throughout the program where this process yielded very negative cost savings in that regards. Another photo of the ozone intake skids. Within that facility, the ozone electrical room, and that panel in the center is one of the HMI screens. Switch gear that's been placed within the ozone electrical room, and various control panels. The ozone facility also has a standalone backup generator supply specific for the ozone, and then some of the HVAC assembly that's been completed within the ozone room. This photo is to capture some of the concrete pilasters and some final prep efforts in order to place the masonry veneer in order to get the final aesthetics of these facilities and structures. The City of Enid has a contract for the locks equipment. This is the excavation in order to begin prep and placement of the pad to support that equipment. More electrical installation within the chemical building. The west plant, facing north and working from right to left, we have the chemical building, the ozone building, and then the flock sed building. As I'd mentioned in one of the prior slides, this here will be the primary focus for us for the foreseeable future outside of the other ongoing efforts. But this filter admin building, this picture captures the elevator shaft and replacement of the structural shield. In the near future, over the next 1 to 2 months, we'll transition to the deck panels and the wall panels and begin some pretty extensive build-outs of that structure. This structure has some long, lengthy delays that will compromise the critical path of the program. But the importance of this structure is it's where the entirety of this program would be serviced and operated from. So it's important that we get this piece of the puzzle correct and right. So I'll talk more about the projected timelines to this and what this means for the overall program. Another look at the filter admin facility. Some of the pipe galleries, and I've got a series of 2, 3 photos of work that's happening inside of these structures. Again, more of the filter pipe gallery. And one more. So again, a lot of neat things. If you want to make a visit, please reach out with Morale and we'll set up a time to ensure everyone can be kept within a safe space throughout the course of the build. A lot of heavy equipment operations, so it's important we communicate if those are events that we need to help facilitate. Outside of that building, the high service pump station, see the vertical turbine pump piping assemblies. Again, looking back towards electrical buildings, some of the CMU walls and the metal truss installations. High service pump station roof trusses. I felt it important to keep this older photo. I mean, which one of the many unique features to this Call Lake program, it's a blended water supply. This area here that is actually buried and out of sight, out of mind today is actually where that happens. That's the blending of the surface water and the existing groundwater supply. Chestnut water main. Well, from December, we've come quite a ways. At that time, I think I'd presented on some traffic controls and phasing plans. But generally speaking today, and we still have some ongoing work happening right here at Garland intersection. We've got a tunnel that's all but complete. Some open cut piping that'll join that tunnel once that's in. But generally speaking, starting at the plant, we've successfully completed installation through Garland, all the way through Oakwood, inclusive of the HDD. And that we're currently transitioning our crews to the east side of the area now to begin those connections. Once that tunnel's complete at Garland, we'll back up and complete those piping interconnects. But that's roughly 71% of the alignment. And again, while we're on this, we'll need to orchestrate and communicate a complete road closure east of Cleveland, as that portion of the alignment runs north-south across Chestnut to tie into the existing 24-inch main. But a lot of communication with Morale and staff as we begin to solidify our upcoming scheduled phasing approach for those efforts. Some photos of the restorative efforts. The photo on the left is some of the final prep for the 36-inch HDD that was constructed. Photo on the right is some, general gradage, surface restorative efforts along Chestnut. The next 3 photos, a series of driveways, streets, and one of the precast manhole structures to accommodate the combination air release valving. Again, more of the driveway and street crossings, some of the final restoration efforts near the 36-inch HDD on the right. And we knew it going into this project. On some scale, all these projects yield some form of public disruption. What can we do to try to minimize that? I think it's important to show these slides. Went to extensive efforts from Soundwall, things of that nature to try to do right, the best we could with adjoining homeowners. Fortunately, this portion of the build is 100% constructed, and those HDD crews and operations have since demobilized. Got a few other aerials. This is at the directional drill rig, and the aerial is facing east. That's on the opposing side of the drill, facing back west on the pipe string. To maintain positive ingress and egress, we had to do that in a series of 2 pipe strings in order to keep the homeowner access to the property. As the time neared, we coordinated a temporary closure of the driveway, and then we facilitated the final pullback. Kind of the same area, turned around 180 degrees, facing back east towards Oakwood. So a lot of disruption that we mitigated and avoided by construction of this horizontal directional drill, the public school systems, et cetera, throughout that portion of the alignment. And again, a couple of the closing photos. Successful pullback of that HDD, and we'll continue efforts forward. This portion of the program is still on track by summer this year for final completion. Again, roughly 71%. We'll need to work through coordination and timing of final filling, testing, and disinfection alongside city and staff, but everything is tracking right where it should be currently in this program with regards to Chestnut. Any questions on construction before I transition to some of the financials and then projected timeline update?
I've got two questions. On the Bodark, you said excessively deep. How deep is that when you went underneath that?
There's roughly a 40 vertical foot excavation to that piping structure.
Okay. And you'd also mentioned extensive delays in the filtration building out there.
Yep.
I knew that there were some things that were out of your control. Can you speak to those just a little bit?
Certainly. Very complex structure, and timing of getting some of the things that we needed in hand to facilitate release of materials. And everything is compounded in this market we're in with the COVID and availability of materials. So if we missed a mark and we miss a deliverable and something gets delayed, that could have a compounding effect. But generally speaking, that facility itself is going to incur about a 1-year delay to the program from a high-level standpoint.
Okay. Okay.
Anything else? Oop. Okay. An older slide, but I think it's important. Got a new commission, so we toss terminology around. I think it's important to just keep that fresh. You know, at some point we'll be near final construction, final billings, final closeouts. What is cost of work, contract sum? What does all this mean? Well, simply stated, from time to time we'll refer to the total cost. That in fact is the same as contract sum. So what is contract sum? It's the cost of work for each and every respective bid package that we have in the program, multiplied by the CMAR fees. That yields the contract sum or total cost for that bid package. Sum of all those together equal where we're currently at today, 256.8 GMP through change order number 6. And that was executed May of last year. Also within the program, and it's an older slide that we talked about before, CMAR contingency. A number of items within the program we've applied CMAR contingency to date. Right now is our current summary of the 8 CMAR contingency requests to date. We had roughly $4.4 million of total CMAR contingency, with currently $993,000 or just under $1 million remaining throughout all those 8 requests. Now granted, those 8 requests are very itemized. There are multiple components within there, but to roll them up into presentable format, there's been 8 prior requests to date. All 8 of those have been authorized by the city. When I stood before you in December, not all 8 of those had been authorized at that time. And what does this really mean? Part of what Garney did throughout the onset of this program was try to remain a good partner for the city. We had donated essentially a big chunk of the CMAR contingency to fund design progression that would normally be presented to City Commission for a GMP change order amendment. But due to the financials of the program and the desire to try to maintain the budget, roughly $3 million of this $3.4 million was for design progression that we've agreed to stand up and be a good partner for. That's what got us to where we are today. We've still got a ways to go in the program. Obviously, I've talked about extension of the schedule. what that might do for final commissioning and startup. And I'll touch on a few of those in this next slide. So again, change order number 6 moved Garney's substantial completion. That's what we refer to as a manual startup. Garney has that from a startup standpoint within the program. The city has contracted with Garver to handle the automation component, separate and independent from Garney. Now, we'll be working in a unified manner and a collaborative effort through a serious portion of that, but it's important to know we each have our own responsibilities. We get the systems ready, Garver takes over and implements the automation component. So our current milestones are June 27th of 2024. At this point, we think it would be ready for a manual startup by spring of next year. A couple of caveats to that. We need to work through the laboratory component, what that may or may not do to Garney's demand for, manual mode startup. So worst case, that's looking like summer of 2025, if we include and incorporate the laboratory within that filter admin building, part of that process. And again, for this to be a turnkey functional unit, I'd reference the elevator shaft and a few other things earlier in the presentation on the filter admin building. We have to get to near final completion in order to secure a building occupancy permit, so that structure can be staffed by city employees in order to operate this treatment plant. The other component I have on there, delays per HDDs in raw water pipeline commissioning. I don't really want to speak of that in too much detail yet this evening. I'd mentioned earlier in my prior update, we were 2,200 feet in at Arc East. Today, west is successfully constructed, east is not. We're looking at an alternative work plan to potentially procure additional resources to facilitate that work and to get it complete. Based on what we know today, we still feel confident we can have totality of that scope in, commissioned, and ready for intended operation before close of this year, based on what we know today. So we can still deliver that portion of the program ahead of the filter admin building that have a little bit of tail to it. We'll continue to work feverishly. Obviously, today's wins, if we had the materials in order to work on the roof or wall panels with the cranes, would really be a non-work day. It's just too windy and gusty to work safely. So we'll need to monitor and be cognizant of that as we march forward, but optimistic in the next 4 to 6 weeks, more of those materials arrive on site. We can resume work and continue the build and hopefully accelerate ahead of that current projected summer, September 2025 mark. Questions?
Relative to the contingency that you had the slide a while ago, and I'm not trying to pin you down, but how do you feel about finishing a project inside of that contingency without having to go outside of that contingency?
Commissioner, I think we do need to have some continued discussions because there are a lot of variables in play in order to make that happen. Is it possible? Potentially. Are we committed to trying to make that happen? 100% yes.
I recognize that, and I wouldn't expect any other different answer. I'm really just interested in a gut check. Is it, do you think if I read your body language, I've gotten to know you pretty well in four years, you're saying that
Good and bad.
We're probably going to go past it.
We want to continue to remain a good partner with the city, and we look forward to continued conversations because I think it's important we all get held to the same baseline of standard.
Okay. That's good enough.
Anything else?
Any other comments or concerns, questions?
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Okay, 3.3, we'll do an update on the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. mural from PACE.
Hi,
Angela?
Mayor and Commissioners. I'm excited tonight to be here to talk to you about another new PACE art project for the city of Enid. This project will be a tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King, and we believe it's going to enhance this city administration building. Along with the selected artist team tonight that are here to answer any questions you may have, I have the PACE President, Christy Northcutt, and then PACE Board Member Ron Jansen, who came to the board about 6 months ago with this idea. And so we'll get started on the presentation. As I said, this is going to be a tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King, and we formulated an RFP about 6 months ago. The vision for the project is we wanted a really vibrant, dynamic, and inspiring art that is going to promote Dr. Martin Luther King, his life, and his experience in advancing civil rights through nonviolence. The art will be placed in the front of the building on this northeast corner. And Ron, if you want to come up and speak about the project.
Thank you.
Well, you've heard about some big projects tonight, and we're here to talk about a small project. But I think an important project, and as it mentioned a few minutes ago, that this is something we've been working on since September. This project was presented to the PACE committee at our December meeting, and it was unanimously adopted by the Public Arts Commission. And I think it will enhance not only the city, and it's going to have a large and very visible art project on what is probably the busiest street in town. And one of my concerns about some of our past projects, we have a lot of really beautiful art projects, but some of them are in rather obscure locations, and you've got to really be looking for them to find them. But this one is going to be right on the main street, on the front of this building, and it'll be apparent to everyone what our art money's being spent on. This building was named as the Martin Luther King Municipal Complex 34 years ago, and Commissioner Stallings, I think, was on that commission. I don't want to give away your age or anything, but he was on the commission that approved the naming of this project for Dr. Martin Luther King. And the sign in the front, which has been out there for almost all of that time, was actually donated by a local business. Last September, like I say, we launched this project. The project has taken longer to get to you than I thought it would. But since I have a lot of experience with the city council, I know how that works. And we're happy that it's being brought tonight. The city recently has gotten some rather negative press, and in my opinion, this project can give us some really positive press. So I think it'll also be beneficial from that standpoint. You've got some more things you want to present, and like I say, we do have the artist here tonight, and I know you want to hear something from him, so I'll sit down.
Thanks, Ron. As Ron stated, it was a bit of a process to get us where we are today. Our first concern was, let me get back. Which button gets me back? There we go. I want that picture. We were concerned, originally the idea was to paint the mural on the wall. And then there were a few conversations about whether that would be a good idea to actually do the painting on the wall. And then we started brainstorming about some other concepts that might work if we didn't paint on the wall. And we finally, Christy, Ron, and I sat down, and it was finally determined that maybe we needed to leave it up to the artist to decide a concept for us where we would not paint on the wall, but still get the mural that we wanted for this building. And so we put out the RFP. The RFP went out last December, and our submission deadline was on the 15th of January. We did get 9 submittals. Our original plan was to narrow it down to 4 artists, and we actually had 5 that we really loved, so we wanted to see what concept that they would come up with for this building specifically based on the criteria of our RFP. We looked at past works that they had done. Some had a few related to MLK. Others had just done portrait type of murals, which we knew we were kind of going for that look for this project. We held a lot of meetings. We did include members from the MLK board. Scott Morris found us a couple of members to represent that board. And so they were a part of this discussion and attended the meetings, as well as Commissioner Norwood came to most of the meetings along with several of his constituents to weigh in on the process. So we did have a lot of public comment and a lot of public participation in our meetings that we held. Finally, we got down to our final 2. We thought we would go from 5 to 1, but we actually had 2 artists that had such great submittals that we had to hold another couple of meetings to get where we wanted to go. And we chose a local artist, Tox, and then also Tox had a team member with him on this project, Terrell Prince, so we were really excited. Got a great project and a local artist team, so it worked out. This is their concept for the project. The project cost is $49,300. Our budget was not to exceed $50,000. This project is going to consist of a mural painted on ACM, I believe it is. And Terrell is going to construct a frame, so they'll be up here in a minute to speak to that. I think if you're local, you know Tox's work. And some may not be as familiar with Terrell, but he's done signs here at the city of Enid for years, and he produces some great artistic work as well. So with that, I'll have the artist team come up and they can speak to you.
Hello, everyone.
Hi. This project would be a project where essentially I would do the first half and then I would turn it over to Tox, basically giving him a canvas to work off of. Being a sign maker, whenever we had this request brought to us, I thought to myself, how would anybody build something on that wall without getting the paint on there? So I just went straight to my sign work because I'm also an artist. But for those that don't know what ACM is, it's aluminum composite material. Would you like to pass this around if I know what that is? This material is a material I've confidently used in and around the state with high winds for 24 years. I'm a licensed sign contractor here in the city of Enid, been one for 12 years. This sign frame would be constructed out of 2-inch aluminum square tubing, structural, and it would be made out of 4 pieces to be able to haul down the highway, US DOT regulations, and be constructed on site in 4 pieces, one by one, bolted together, and then essentially bolted into the building with 3/8 concrete anchor, which has a shear weight of 5,400 pounds. This sign's not going to weigh anywhere near that. Once the sign frame is constructed and bolted and put into place, the ACM panels would then be adhered to the tubing with a different screw, but it would only penetrate into the first half of it. That eliminates hundreds and hundreds of screws being put into the building. I think we would still have to put somewhere between 75 and 100. There are some joints in the building that we would want to avoid, and I would do that on site once we got to those questions in hand, because part of this mural will be three-dimensional. It would have a second layer of square tubing that would be placed on the main canvas, and certain portions of it, some of the elements in the art will be its own layer. Once that's all done, Talks would come in and paint everything that you see in the submittal.
Can we ask a question?
Yes, I'm sorry. Does anyone have any questions?
Is it gonna be on this wall right here?
Yes.
Okay, so is it slanted? Is that wall slanted?
It does have a 5-degree slant.
Will the picture actually have the slant, or will it be, you're gonna shim it so that it's straight up?
We talked about shimming it out. It'd be about 15 to 18 inches if we had to at the top. And
Looks like it.
birds, things like that, getting back there, we decided to just let it be 2 inches and stay with the 5-degree slant of the building.
Is it gonna center on this wall?
It'll pretty much take up the whole wall.
Oh, wow.
What about the flagpoles?
I'm sorry.
The flagpoles?
The flagpoles will just stand in front of it. I mean, we looked at possibly even painting to incorporate the flagpoles in there, but driving by multiple angles, Talks and I have been out on site several times. We decided against that. I think it's just going to be its own piece of art, and it's going to be so big that you're going to see it regardless of the flagpoles.
How long will it take you to do this?
I think it's going to take close to 2 months. I think it's going to take me anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks to build the frame, and I think weather will be a factor with Talks' portion of it, but he's actually probably going to be faster than I am.
Our original goal for the project was to try to have it ready to go by Juneteenth. They said 9 weeks in their proposal, which 9 weeks from today would be the 18th, but that may be pushing it. So ideally, if they can have it ready to go, we'd love to have the ribbon cutting by Juneteenth, but we know it took a little bit longer to get to this point than we anticipated, and so we know they have some time needed to do their work.
I would like to mention something. All the framework is gonna be, we're gonna be doing it, or he's gonna be doing it on his shop. So basically, it's gonna take around about 4 weeks to get it done on his shop. After that, he's gonna come to install it. And for me, I think it's gonna take me around from 2 weeks to 3 weeks to get it done. So basically, we're just gonna be working here just like 2 or 3 weeks, as at the most,
Well, I think it's going to be a great project. I had some concern when you were talking about painting it on that surface, whether or not it would stay and last, and had a lot of concern. So I'm very pleased to see that you're going to use the panels. I think we couldn't have picked a better person to have done that. I mean, just the work all over town that you've done, Talks, and I just think it's going to be outstanding. I think it's very fitting to our building. I mean, it's named, right? Martin Luther King. So I think it'll be very fitting. And I love the scope, the size of that. And probably the last thing I'll say is kudos to our pace board. You guys always seem to find, every time I think you've probably done the best thing ever, you find something else that's just a little more grand. So thank you. You've made our community just everywhere we go look better and better. So I'm excited. I'm glad we get to vote on it tonight, and I think it's going to be an amazing project. So thank everyone. And we're not rushing you. We'd rather you do it right and take 3 weeks instead of 2 weeks if you need it. So, all right. So, thank you. Thank you, Christie, also, and Ron, for having enough foresight to see that.
I just want to mention something about how long it's gonna last. The thing is that we were thinking about it, and I think it's gonna last a lot, because we're planning to clear coat our work, and also it's gonna be, all the materials we're gonna be using it, those last for a long time. So I don't think we have to be worried about it,
Well,
So I just.
I can always touch it up at a later date, so.
Well,
All right. Well, thank you all very much.
Well, thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excited. Okay. 3.4, update on the methane plant at the landfill by Scissortail.
Well, Mayor, Commissioners, staff, thank you for your time today. Today we'll cover a couple items related to our timeline, related to our new site plan, and then have our engineer, John, discuss some detail on what you see in front of you with this handout and what you have on the easels. From there, we'll take any questions and answers that you may have, and then ask for your support on item 6.5 on the consent agenda. I would say welcome to Commissioner Patterson-elect. Look forward to sharing with you our Scissortail project that we have before you and have been briefing you. So again, on top of the thank yous, it's really to staff who's supported us in this move to a location on the northeast corner of the landfill. We've vetted this move through numerous channels and a lot of feedback. And so the good news that I have for you today is it does not affect our project timeline. Beginning in January of this year till April 10th, we have ordered all our key components and equipment needed to maintain an on-time schedule at the end of this year for a plant that can be in service. And so things like our compressors, our thermal oxidizers, our vessels, our pumps, everything that's a component needed that you see on that sheet has been ordered and orders have been placed. And not only will things arrive in July, in August and September, as you see from the schedule that's on the screen and in your handout, we still assume to maintain an on-time schedule for you. So really what we're asking for you in the agenda item is to move our plant to the northeast corner of the landfill, adjacent to the interconnect lot with the pipeline utility. And really the summary that I would give can't be summarized any better than your agenda item that you received, which in one paragraph did what we've been attempting to do for the last 7 months. And really that's something that's supported by staff, something that benefits the site flexibility and entry and access, something that makes us next door to the interconnect lot, something that provides some fencing and some visibility for you to see a engineered fence, and then most importantly, something that avoids the existing easements that were going to be potentially unresolvable in order to meet our schedule. And so what I'll do now is turn it over to John and then take some questions for you. Do appreciate your attention and time and interest in our project. And hopefully soon, by the end of this month, you'll begin seeing what's shown there on the screen, erosion control measures beginning on the property. John?
Thank you. Good evening. I'll try to be brief. You guys have put a lot of water under the bridge, so to speak, so far this evening. As Norman mentioned, we've had some challenges with our site. It looks pretty wide open out there, but unfortunately we can't see underground to see what all's going on. We've had some challenges with the gathering lines out there, which we believe now we've mitigated with this location. We've got out of their way, out of their supposed right-of-way that they have jurisdiction over, even though these are inactive lines. We felt it was best to have a clear spot underneath. So a lot of advantages we've really gained with the intersection area there. We're closer to our utility connection with OG&E. We met with them today. It's a very simple service drop across Southgate Road. Our interconnect into One Oak is, again, very close. We only have less than a couple hundred feet of line to put in to be able to compress and inject right into the pipeline. The grading's pretty good out there. We're kind of up on the hill, but we'll do a little bit of minor grading. We got our coring results back from the geotech. We're above the rock, so I know our first spot we had issues with rock and we shifted it, so it appears, as they say, third time is a charm here. In terms of schedule, we have our contractor ready to come out next Wednesday and start putting in erosion control. So we're ready to go to work next week. The week of April 29th, we're ready to mobilize, work with the folks at the landfill to get temporary gate in and get access for our construction entrance there that's depicted off of 16th Street. The site also is a benefit where we're going to be able to create a kind of a through access to Southgate now and provide that second entrance off of Southgate. I'm sure the fire marshal will like that because then we have a nice pass-through area from one end of the site to the other, so makes for good circulation. In terms of visibility, we have to build a security fence anyway for the site, so it's our intention that on 3 sides, on the west, north, and east sides, we would go ahead and put up a 8-foot composite fence. So we use the word composite again tonight. It's a 25-year product, and so in essence, it's a visual screen. It also it works as a sound barrier, so any sound from the equipment is projected upward and not outward. So that's a brief overview of what we've done. The plant footprint is pretty much the same size as what you've seen previously. It's just positioned now to where the plant's adjacent to the injection lot, and then the warehouse is actually then adjacent to the plant on the west side. So we're anxious to get going. And we had a groundbreaking, and so now we really want to go and get that going. So any questions from anybody on what you're looking at?
I don't. I just asked, I think David Hunter's sitting back there. Mr. Hunter, you're all good with what's being proposed tonight?
We actually talked back and forth considerably. We've not allowed to change papers and all of it.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Very good.
we had some extensive discussions to kind of sort out all the details and just make sure we're not in each other's way, so to speak, going forward.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody have any questions or comments? No? Thank you.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate your support.
Okay, with that being said, we're going to adjourn and we will start our regular session at 6:30.